Welcome back to the Spurs Chat podcast. Welcome back to the channel. Great to be here.
Has anyone seen the Spurs Chat podcast? Craig Dearman, can you hear me, Craig? Your boys don't win. Hell of a beating. Gary Maloney, Ricky Norwood, Chris Cowlin. Can you hear me? Your boys don't win. Hell of a beating against the Seagulls.
Welcome, Jason Cundy. Now, in this
Hello,
episode,
matey.
I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Jason Cundy, a former Premier League centre-back. He made 26 appearances for Spurs, scoring once. He also played 2 League Cup games for Tottenham. He also played for Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Bristol City, Ipswich Town and Portsmouth, and also won 3 England under-21 caps. He is, of course, now an extremely popular broadcaster at talkSPORT. Jason, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Chris, yes, I'm very well, mate. I appreciate you you asking me on here. So, yeah, looking forward to it. I'm not sure too many Spurs fans are, but we'll get through that.
It's true. I've put it out on all social media channels today. And,
right, okay.
a
What's
lot
the feedback like, Chris?
Why?
What's it like?
Why is Jason Cundy coming on the show? Jace, why are you here?
Because you asked me, Chris. I've done a thing with you with talkSPORT for men's mental health.
Yeah.
Remind me, was it before the Euros or during the Euros? I think it might have been before.
It was before
the Euros, and we met up and we done a show together. We've done a promoting men's mental health, and we had a couple of beers after. We've done it with a lad from Watford as well. There's a couple of other people there, and you said to me, "Will you come on?" I said, "You know what, I will." And it's taken me a bit of a while to kind of get round to it, obviously with the Euros and holidays and so on and so forth. But you messaged me last week. And I said, "You know what, I'll do it." So I'll do it for you, Chris. So thank you very much for inviting me on.
Well, it's great to have you here. And I tell you what, Jason is not shy in buying a beer, because every single time I had about half a pint left, he was buying another one. I don't know whether that was I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, Jason.
Chris, I can't wait. If everyone's glass is empty, I'm like, do you know what? Right, they'll get the next one, or they'll get the next one. It's like, I can't wait. It's like, I'll get the beers in. It's absolutely fine. So yes, you owe me a beer, by the way, Chris.
Absolutely, I owe you more than one. Jace, I really wanted to bring you on here because I think you get a lot of stick from a lot of Spurs fans. I know you give the Spurs fans a lot of banter, particularly on talkSPORT. I know you don't do social media anymore, but I wanted you to kind of tell your story about being a Spurs player and why you hate Spurs so much. But we'll get onto that in a second.
What do you mean I hate Spurs so much?
Of course you do.
Where's that come from?
Well, let's jump straight in there then. Why do you hate Spurs so much? Because you wore the logo. You work for the football club.
What is that? Okay, why? So then, let's flip it. What does that mean? I should love Spurs? Is that what you're saying? So because I wore the badge, I mean, I'm going to give you Mickey Hazard and Graham Roberts. You know, how does that work? There's a lot of stuff that goes on social media and talkSPORT and so on and so forth. But what makes here's a question. Give me examples of why I hate Spurs. I'm not saying I don't. Give me examples of why I hate Spurs.
Well, let's kind of start from the beginning, because we'll get into that in a second. I'll come back to it because growing up, obviously you wanted to be a footballer. Talk us through your journey, first of all, about becoming a footballer, because, of course, at Chelsea, you started your career. You were voted Chelsea Young Player of the Season in 1987. You waited 3 years for your debut, but talk through about your journey of becoming a footballer.
Right, so I grew up in Wimbledon. Mum and Dad still live there in South Wimbledon. I was at Wimbledon as a kid, Crystal Palace, Arsenal, West Ham. But I only wanted to play for Chelsea as a young boy, to go and spend my 30, 40, 50p, go and stand in the shed end. And the only team I wanted to play for was Chelsea. So I got my dad to write to Chelsea for a trial. And one of the scouts came down and watched me. And he said, "Will you come down?" And after that, it was only ever Chelsea for me. And that was when I was 11. So I was 11. So that was the only ever club for me. And when I grew up, there were so many other clubs that were sporting Chelsea back in the 80s, like early 80s, like late 70s, early 80s. Chelsea were just, I mean, there was every club. It felt like every one of my mates' clubs were better than me, better than us, and I used to get ridiculed. But that was just, that's the club. My dad went there. My dad's 95 now. My dad went there in the 50s to watch them. He took me in 1976 to watch Chelsea, and luckily enough, I've been able to just watch the club, work for the club, play for the club. I still work for the club now, and it's my club. It's in my family. The family history of Chelsea goes through not just my dad, but it extends a big extended family. So, and most of my mates as well. So yeah, I was lucky enough to play for the club, and that's basically my beginning.
Jace, don't take this the wrong way, but I want the Chelsea section to go very fast in this podcast, as I'm sure a lot of the Spurs fans listening and watching do. But you made your debut for Chelsea in September 1990 in a 1-0 defeat against QPR, aged 20. You had a good performance against Spurs, against Gary Lineker, actually. Talk us through that experience about playing against Gary Lineker at that time.
Well, it felt, from memory, it felt like a night game, but I don't think it was. I think it was like in the autumn, when the clocks go back, as we're going to be entering not too far from here. It was a game that we won. I think we were leading, and I think did Gary score 2 in that game? It was quite a high scoring game. I
don't remember.
Help me out, Gary. Help me out, Chris. Sorry. I seem to remember that it was. I think we might have won it 3-2 or 4-3, something like that. But the lights are on. But that's the first time I played against someone that I don't forget. I was only young, and Gary Lineker at that time was an England international. He was a British icon, English icon, and I eventually ended up playing with Gary, years later. But it was one of those games. There's something, and we're going to get onto this, Chris. There's something about Chelsea, Spurs, Chelsea, and I want to park that, but I want that to be quite a big part of what this conversation is going to be about, because the atmosphere, as a young kid growing up, when I come through the youth team, we always knew that Spurs were the team to beat. That was it as a young kid coming through the academy, or as it was then as an apprenticeship. And it was the team. It was Arsenal were always Arsenal and Spurs, but it always felt the Spurs were the one you had to beat more than Arsenal, West Ham, Palace, whoever else it was. So to beat Spurs at home, and I believe, Chris, I'm right in saying that was the beginning of this unbelievable 2-decade run.
Yeah,
Spurs never beat us, and I played in that first game, and I just remember the floodlights at the end of the game. I think there might have been a penalty. I don't know. I'm trying to help you. Hoping you're going to help me out here for some information. But it was Chelsea Spurs, Chris. That it's one of the biggest games, certainly as a Chelsea fan. You tell me if it's not as a Spurs fan, but it was a Stamford Bridge. It was a big day.
You say about that rivalry between Spurs and Chelsea. Why does it seem that Chelsea and Arsenal are friends?
We're not friends.
There's not that same rivalry at all. You do business with one another constantly.
Exhibit A, or whatever you want to go. Spurs and Chelsea do. There's definitely no friendship, but there's something about Chelsea, Spurs, Chelsea, which is in London. I've got Arsenal friends and Spurs friends. The atmosphere and the toxic grounds, it feels different from speaking to Spurs. You tell me, you're a Spurs fan. It's different. The hatred and the dislike and the vitriol may well be similar, but there's something about Chelsea, Spurs, Arsenal. It's different. You tell me, what makes you think it's?
I feel like it's really ramped up a lot since the Battle of the Bridge, since that evening. I feel like that has really ramped up, and I feel like a lot of Spurs fans actually detest Chelsea more than Arsenal in some respects. I think that has really ramped up in recent years. Would you agree with that?
No, I think it's before then. I think that from my own point of view as a fan, as a young kid growing up, it was always Spurs were the ones. I don't know what you always seem to be like a little bit of a showbiz team as a Chelsea fan growing up. a little bit showbiz, a little bit flash. That's how it felt as a young Chelsea fan growing up. The Spurs were a bit. Arsenal always seemed a bit regimental. Arsenal always felt as if they were a football club doing things in the right way, the marble arches, that sort of thing. Spurs always come across to me as a young boy growing up, a bit flash, a little bit. We're the boys. That's how it felt.
Well,
growing up. I mean,
okay. Well, in 1992, you joined those Flash Boys. So talk us through that move, because I know when I spoke to you a couple of months back, and I kind of quizzed you about this a little bit, and you said, "Well, I didn't want to go." Can you talk to us a little bit more about that? Because how did the transfer work? Because Spurs came in for you. You initially signed for Tottenham on loan, but you weren't very happy about it.
That's not strictly speaking true. So what happened was, in the November of the 91, I signed a 4.5-year contract with Chelsea, and in the March, on transfer deadline day in 92, I later found out that we were playing Sunderland in the FA Cup quarter-final, and we got knocked out. And apparently a deal was done between Ken Bates and Alan Sugar that if Chelsea got knocked out, that deal could be done. If Chelsea went through, or we went through at that particular time, the transfer window would have shut, which is the last Thursday in March back in 92. The deal would not have been done, but we got knocked out in that quarter final. And I was phoned up on the late Monday or early Tuesday about the deal before the last Thursday of that March. And it was Ian Porterfield phoned me, and he said to me, I was at home. He said, "Are you sitting down?" And when you're manager, and I was only young, I was only 22, I hadn't been in the first team that long. He said to me, "Are you sitting down?" And when you hear that from your manager, I mean, he never phoned me home. It's the first time he ever phoned me, probably the last time. What's happened here? What's your heart starts skipping, and you think, what? He said, "Spurs have made a bid. Chelsea have accepted it. Terry Venables is going to phone you this afternoon." That was it. That's laid on my plate as I was still living at mum and dad's. How do you, as a young boy growing up, how do you compute that?
Did you have a choice? Did you have a choice though, Jace, whether you wanted to go or not?
I felt really let down and disappointed that Chelsea had decided to take the money. And as a young kid, I couldn't believe it was happening. It was just incomprehensible that this thing could be happening in front of me. That this was happening, but it was, and it was real. It was real. I spoke to my mum and dad. I then spoke to my agent. Who, what do you say? It's like, where do I go from here? I asked Ian Porterfield if I'd be stuck in the reserves, and what really, he said to me, not if it's down to me. And that kind of made me feel, right, Ken Bates has sold me. And back then, Chris, if you didn't do what the club wanted, you ended up more often than not in the reserves. And I felt, shit, I'm in a hole here. What do I do? And Chelsea, and I felt let down by Chelsea. I was really disappointed. It upset me, but they made their choices. I had to make mine. And at 22-year-old, there was only one choice that had to be made, and it was it. I had to go. I spoke to Terry. I met Terry Venables up in Kensington. My agent sat down with him on the Wednesday or the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and he sold the club to me. And he said, "Look, here's what we've offered. Here's what we're going to do." He said, "We're bringing other players in." As it turned out, it was going to be Razor, it was going to be Darren, it was going to be one or two others. He said, "We're going to build the club." And he said, "Look, I made the move myself. I've done this move." And it literally was a bomb going off in my face, and I had to make my choice. I felt let down by Chelsea, and it's like, do you know what? I've got to make my call.
Jay, so when you initially signed for Spurs on loan, the actual deal was done at that point for a permanent move in the summer, was it?
Yes, it was. It was. That was irrelevant. That was done just for, ironically, now we think about financial fair play. That was done for financial reasons. So that was in that particular calendar year, which was in March, I think, before the April, when the tax year starts again. I don't know. That's my understanding of it. That's why it was put as a loan deal. Then the deal became permanent in the summer.
How did it feel walking into Spurs at the end of that 91-92 season, and who was the most welcoming for you?
Well, I knew Justin. Are you talking about when I walked in the dressing room?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a lot of young lads. So I kind of knew Justin Edinburgh reasonably well, God rest his soul. And then I made friends very quickly. I'm quite a personable boy. I'm not shy. I can come, and I get on with people. I'm not one of those that sort of sit in the corner of the room and do it. So I got on with people, and in the end, I made good friends with Steve Sedgley, Paul Stewart as well, Justin Edinburgh, as I said. That was the first real friends that I made towards the end of that season. It was, it was a new life. It was brutal for me as a young 22-year-old, but that's the one thing, Chris, that I think football fans really fail to understand is the business side of football. How at times it's just brutal. I've just seen Conor Gallagher, leave Chelsea. He probably wanted to stay. Out you go. And now, if you think about the power the players have now, back then when I was a player, we had no power. We had no power. It was literally, thank you, goodbye, or we'll cast you off to wherever. You'll sit in the reserves the rest of the season until you do what we want to do. It was a very different world back then.
Chase, of course, you made your Spurs debut on the 28th of March against Coventry. We won the game 4-3. Do you remember who scored?
Well, I'm guessing Cyril Regis did because he broke my nose.
No, for Spurs.
Oh, no. Got no idea, mate. No idea.
Really?
No idea. No.
Gordon Jury scored a hat-trick and Lineker got the other one. And also what I was going to ask.
I was going to say Lineker.
Yeah. Do you remember your teammates that day?
Eric in goal.
Yep.
Justin Edinburgh.
Yep.
Was who was my centre half? Give me Terry. No. Sedge would have played. David Howes.
Sedgley was a sub.
Sedge was a sub. David Howes. Fennick, would Fenn play? Did Fenn
Howes wasn't in the team that day.
David Howes. Terry Fennick?
No. Vanden Houw, Mabbott, Alan, Gray, Naeem, Stewart, Jury, and Lineker.
Naeem, yes. What a boy he was, by the way. Have you had Naeem on the show?
Not yet.
Yeah, you'll love him. What a boy he is. Yes, great boy. Naeem, go on, give me the team again.
It was Torsvet, Vanden Houw, yourself, Mabbott, Edinburgh, Alan, Gray, Naeem, Stewart, Gordon Jury, and Gary Lineker. And only two subs that day.
Two subs, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. Very, very different world, right? You think about now. You look at a bench, and it takes you just as long to the bench as it does the first team.
Yeah. What did you have anything to do with Alan Sugar when you were at Spurs?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing.
What was Peter Shreves like as a manager for you?
I was quite shocked when my first training session at. So Paul Walsh was Walshy involved in that team at any stage, right?
He was a sub. Yeah.
He was a sub, was he? Right. Okay. I was quite shocked at how unprofessional it was. My first training session, I couldn't quite believe. And I'm coming from Harlington at Chelsea, but we were at Spurs. The first training session, it was so unprofessional. It was quite an eye opener for me, thinking, "Wow, this is how the players almost ran the training session a little bit." Peter Shreves, he was under massive pressure at that time. When I sat down with Terry, it was obvious that Peter Shreves was his tenure was coming to an end. That's how it felt joining the club, which was also something that I need to discuss with the club. But it just seemed just a mess. It didn't seem like a club that was stable. I'm guessing right now there's no way Ange would be this football club now would not have that same atmosphere that I joined.
Chase, what was Gary Lineker like?
Distant. Yeah, a bit distant. He was. I mean, look, I'm a young 22-year-old coming to didn't really ingratiate himself to me at all. Didn't make much of an effort. Some of the other lads did, but I think he went. Did he leave to Grand Passaic that season? Yeah. I think he probably already checked out. He was quite concerned. We played Man United away. I think he won the Golden Boot that year. But Gary never. I see Gary now, and he's fine with me. But as a young boy going there, it didn't. Yeah, don't know.
Jace, talk us through your goal in the 92-93 season. Of course, it was the first ever Premier League season. It seems like such a long time ago, but of course, you scored that wind-assisted freak goal at Portman Road.
It is exactly what you said. It's a freak goal. It come off my shin. It was a tackle. It was one of the first live games on Sky. It was Teddy's first appearance for the club after his move from Forest. And Jason Dizelle, who I knew before, I used to see Jace go out in London, but he was going to put his foot in for a tackle. The ball was there to be won, and I literally just thought, if you put your foot in, I'm going to take it. And it hit my shin. It caught a thermal, and one thing that'll always stick with me, and I still see Razor, is that he said when it left my ankle or foot, we would call it. He said, "That's in." He said, I could hear him say, "That's in." And I'm on the ground, and it's like, I'm watching, I'm going, it's unbelievable. And it was just one of those crazy things that can happen in football every now and then. It was a tackle. It come off my shin. It caught a thermal and ended up in the back of the net.
Jace, when you played for Spurs, did you always feel the support of the fans, or were some fans against you?
Chris, I didn't start my career well at Spurs. I wasn't playing particularly well. It's always a tough move, as we know now, one way or the other, if you played for that club. I wasn't playing well. There was things going on in my personal life. I split with my partner at the time. There was a lot of things going on in the background. And one thing, you've got to play well. And if you don't play well, inevitably, you're going to get. You know it yourself. You know yourself. Was I playing well? No. Was I reaching the potential? No. And it's a big move for a 22-year-old. And things never really got off the ground for me. I remember ending that season. It's like build for next season, and things didn't. We got beat away at QPR. I remember that. It was a terrible defeat. And I wasn't playing well, Chris. And I lost my place in the team, deservedly so. And then I got a knee injury. And you need to. At any club, even if you come from a rival or even if you come from any, you need to build up a relationship or a trust or belief from the fans. And it never happened, Chris. It never got off the ground. And I felt it. They felt it. And, the injuries just kind of cemented that. It never worked. The move simply never worked, unfortunately.
Was it ever a problem for you being a Chelsea fan playing for Tottenham?
No, not for me. Not for me. That was never that never reflected in how I felt. It's always, as I found out as I moved on, when you go to a club, you need to try and get off to a good start, because everyone's watching, not just the fans, but the coaching staff. Everyone at the club's watching how he's going to adapt. And it never got off the ground, Chris. It never got off the ground. And I can honestly say that, when you're a professional, this is the one thing that the fans will never grasp, is that when it's your job, you approach it differently as a fan. As a fan now, which I was, then I was a player, now I'm back as a fan. They're two very different attitudes, because you're paid to play, and you're play. I play for various different clubs growing up as a kid, whether it be the district, the county. You always give your best. I don't believe a footballer ever doesn't give his best, ever. There might be reasons why you think he doesn't, or might look like he lacks confidence, but I don't ever believe, although some players will disagree with me, I don't ever believe a player will never give his best, because there's personal pride and there's the badge you're wearing. That's paying my wages. I want to do my best. Unfortunately, it didn't transpire that way.
Talking about the personal problems off the pitch, Jason, I think that the fans never take any of that into consideration, do they?
No, they don't. And I'm very mindful now. I defend players probably to a fault at times on talkSPORT, because I can sympathise with things that might be going on in their life, because all we have this very small image of what a footballer's life looks like, and we only see it on the field of play. We never see what happens. You know, he might have had a car crash on the way and someone might have hit him up. You know, something might have happened. Little small things that affect all of our lives, that get in our head. There might have been an email that's been sent by a company. That there's all things that partnership relationships that come apart. That's not uncommon in any life, but in footballers it happens a lot, especially young players. They're young boys now. There might be a new baby born. There's all sorts of things that as fans, I think we all need to consider. You know, a great example, Brennan Johnson, right? Let's bring that to the table now, right? Brennan Johnson, right? Young boy. I played with his dad, Dave. He you know, and Brennan come with a big price tag, overpriced or not, who knows? We'll find that out in years to come. But you know, it's. I think we all need to be very mindful of these footballers. Ultimately, they're humans. They're human beings. They have feelings. There are things going on in their life. But I'm guilty of it as well, Chris. I'm not criticising every fan, but you know, why is Mudryk, you know, not whipping the ball, and why is he not? You know, but there might be culture shock coming from wherever he's come from. There's all sorts of things to consider that I think we're all guilty of, in all honesty.
Talking about Brennan Johnson there, of course, he came off social media, scored 6 in his last 6. Why do you not do social media anymore yourself?
Because it became all kind of all-consuming. It's like I still view. I've not seen anything today, but I still go on social media because it's a great tool to use for doing the radio. But they're just nobody's just coming out with messages about this, and it's a dark place. It's a dark place. You don't need it. I'm happier now that I've off social media. I've not been on social media coming up for 2 years now. I've been paid to do a couple of things. There's the hypocrite in me, but I don't need it. I'm far happier. Chris, I used to sit there sometimes and argue with people, right, about things, and I'm like, you're never going to win. You know, all it does is encourage more of a pylon. So yeah, you won't see me on social media ever again. So it's easier. My life's easier.
Did that online abuse bother you then, Jace?
No, funnily enough, it didn't bother me, but it consumed me. It took up brain space. So at talkSPORT, when we're doing the show, we have a screen in front of us, so we can see all the messages coming in, whether it be they tend to be now text. Used to be emails, not now. Twitter, less so. I just turn the notifications off. I don't see them because it's anyone can sit there in there wherever they are and send something. I've had wishing my kids cancer. I've had wishing me all sorts. It's I've got pretty broad shoulders, Chris. But when that comes through, when you're doing a live show, it can take you unawares. So I've said, you know what? You won't see me again. And I'm in a much better place for that, without question.
Jace, talking about your time at Spurs still, the managers that you worked under, Peter Shreves, who we've mentioned, Ray Clements, Doug Livermore, Aussie Idealists, Steve Perryman, Jerry Francis. Who did you get on with well, and who didn't you get on with?
I love the fact you said you played under. I actually didn't.
We'll come on to that.
I know, Chris.
You were at Spurs for 6 seasons, and 3 of them you didn't play a single minute. But we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, I know. What's the question again? Sorry, go on.
Who did you like? Who didn't you like?
So Livermore and Clem. That was my first season, right? So we had Terry Venners was the coach at that time. I'm guessing you know that he was the coach. And I was at the team at the start of the team, and then I had a knee injury, had an operation on my knee. I think it was going into October, November time. And I never really, like I said, I never really settled. I never got my game going. and then Razor, and it was Razor and Mabs. I never got back fit enough to get game time. And then I had this back injury, Chris, which kept me out. It was a bulging disc. I had the back injury for probably close to 2 years, undiagnosed. It was my life was in an absolute tailspin. I didn't think I never thought I'd play football again. I was fearful for where my life was going. It went undiagnosed for 18 months-ish, probably. The medical team at Spurs was an utter shambles, absolutely disgustingly disgraceful. And I'm not the only one that will have that opinion, by the way. And I had to get the PFA involved to help save my life, my career, because I was then, it turned out that the exercises, the treatment I was having with my back via the PFA, and I had to go to Harley Street, was actually making my back worse. So I was injured for nearly 2 years with this back injury. Within 6 weeks through the PFA in Harley Street, I was back training.
Jace, in the last couple of years, we've had Darren Anderson on, and also Dean Austin, who suffered multiple injuries, the two of them, during their time at Spurs.
I played with the pair of them.
Yeah, Darren Anderson said that the situation there with injuries was shambolic. You've used a similar word. Dean Austin said he was very depressed about what happened. Why was it so bad? Because we're talking about Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, one of the best clubs in the Premier League. Why was it so bad?
I don't know, Chris. I don't know. I don't know. But it took 2 years of my career was definitely stolen, definitely. And they're paying my wages. Something at your club at that time, there was a derelict of duty about the players, that we're assets, we're worth money. And what happened when I eventually was diagnosed with a bulging disc. And basically what was happening, my disc, I had scoliosis, went undiagnosed. The scoliosis is a curvature of the spine. And I was one of the physios one day, and he put a broom up my back, so it should come out the top of my head. The broom come out of my shoulder, and he laughed. He laughed. Look at that! Look, he laughed. I remember looking at that broom, thinking, "How is that broom? You're at the base of my spine. How is that broom coming out near my ear?" And he laughed. Right? And I'm like, "This is shit." So I went to the PFA, and the PFA wrote to Spurs and said, "Jason doesn't believe he's getting the right treatment. We want to recommend going to the PFA, going to Harley Street via the PFA." Anyway, I was supposed to have a meeting. We're now moved on to Ozzy now. Ozzy was manager. And the meeting I was supposed to have was the day that we played, Spurs, not me, but you, played Wimbledon at home, was the day that Fash gave Mab the elbow, right? And I was supposed to have a meeting with Ozzy Ardiles at that particular day. And I went down to the treatment room, and I was one of the first to see Mabs with his face absolutely crushed. I was injured, but my God, if you did, I'm guessing, I hope you didn't see it. Mabs' face had literally fallen down. It was all collapsed, and it was a serious. We all know what happened. We all know Fash and all that sort of thing. And I was supposed to have a meeting with Ozzy that day after the game, and asking him and sit down with people. And because it was so traumatic, I was supposed to speak to Ozzy, and Ozzy just went, "No." That's it, walked off. So I'm like, I know Mabs has got an injury, I get it, but my life's I'm also sitting in a situation where I've been injured for the last 18 months. You're paying my wages. I need to sort things out here. So eventually, the PFA come to a deal with Spurs, and I went to Harley Street, and within 6 weeks, I promise you this, I was back training.
within 6 weeks.
Yep. 6
Wow.
weeks.
How is it for a player?
Training.
How is it for a player, Jace, to spend that amount of time out and not playing? Because, you know, your mental health must really suffer during that period of time.
Chris, I split my partner. I went off the rails. I was going, you know, what do you do? I couldn't train. You know, you kept away from the players. Going in, the pain's still there. You're not recovering. You're not getting anywhere. And I know for a fact that the staff at the club, direct the club, thought Jason don't fancy it. He's a little bit soft. You don't fancy it. He's just taking the money. Got to tell you that hurts, because all I wanted to do was get fit. I actually at that time just wanted to leave Spurs, and they want to get rid of me, and I get that. That's how the relationship should be. You ain't working for me, I'm not working for you. But you've got to get me fit. For me to leave, you've got to get me fit. Otherwise, I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
No one's going to take me. And I know, and I've spoken to people since, that everyone thought I was put on. And then you go to the PFA. 6 weeks later, I was back fit. I trained then for another 3 or 4 weeks. Got myself match fit. So there's two fitnesses. One, get myself training fit. That was 6 weeks, and these were exercises. I didn't have an operation. These were hard every day. I went to Harley. So I go to Spurs in the morning, 5 days a week. In the afternoon, I come to Harley Street. 5 days a week, every week for 6 weeks. Right. So I was doing these exercises. They were boring, brutal, hard, really disgustingly painful. But I got through it. And within 6 weeks, I've been nearly 2 years injured at Spurs.
During that time, Jace, like a manager like Ozzy at the time, do they talk to you very much? Do they liaise with you very much to see how you are?
No, Ozzy didn't speak to me. Ozzy didn't say a word to me. So there's this running joke in the dressing room where I said to the lads, I'm gonna grow a beard now until Ozzy speaks to me. All right? No, serious. This is serious, because it was a running joke that Ozzy wouldn't speak to me. I actually get on very well with Ozzy now, bizarrely, but he didn't speak. I look like Fiddler on the Roof. I had this big beard, and the only way that I could shave it off was I said it was a night game, and I said, all right, Oz, and he just replied back to me. That was the only way he spoke to me. Refused to look at me, refused to speak to me. But what happened was, which was really interesting, is when I got myself fit, or it was close. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. When I was in that dark place, I went to go and see 3 physios via the PFA. One wanted to give me a fusion. One wanted to remove the disc. Another one wanted to give me another operation. So 3 different operations. And the third surgeon I saw, I said to him, look, here's what I've been offered. This, and this. What are your thoughts on this? And he said to me, this is what scared the life out of me. Well, if they don't work, you're fucked.
Wow.
And I'm like, that was what he said to me. If they don't work, and I'm like, how am I going to trust any one of you surgeons? So Ozzy, so I came to work on the Monday. Ozzy brought me into his office. He said to me, "What operation are you going to have?" I said, "Oz, I haven't decided yet." Tuesday, brought me in again, trying to browbeat me. What operation you have? Wednesday, brought me in. Ozzy wants to see again. By the Thursday, I'm like, this is now bullying me into having an operation I just don't want to have, or don't know what to do. On the Friday, I phoned in sick. I'm not going to go through that again. I'm not. This is just mental torture for me. And I didn't go in on the Friday in the PFA. I can't speak highly enough of the PFA. They absolutely saved my life. And eventually, I got myself fit. I went out on loan, and once the PFA had dealt with me, and I knew how to look after my own back. Then I learned treatments, which I did for the rest of my career after that. I got through it.
Jace, at this point, when the injuries are so bad and you're out of the game for so long? Did any board members or the chairman not get involved at this point?
No.
Wow. The 94-95 season, when, of course, Klinsmann was signed, you were still at the football club, but, of course, sadly for you, you didn't play a single minute that season with all of those great players coming through the door. When you are still a part of the team and still a part of the squad, what involvement did you have, if any, with the likes of Klinsmann when he was there?
Well, do you know, the funny thing is, Chris, that Klinsmann took my squad number. I didn't know about it, right? So I was 18, right? I was 18. And then we went back that season. Obviously, I was injured. And I got bumped higher up to 26, I think it was, or 25, something like that. Klinsmann took 18. He took my number, Chris. No one said a word. But back then, it wasn't quite what it is now. Like now, It feels a little bit sacrosanct. It's a little bit more important to players. It wasn't back then. It had only been something that introduced into the Premier League. It wasn't something that was precious to a player. You know, you see Phil Foden with his number.
Yeah.
John Terry, for example. You know, you'll have examples, I suppose, where players have got numbers and it's like, you know what, this is my number now. I want to keep this. Back then, it was so they passed on. No one told me a word. But I like Klinsmann. I mean, even though I didn't play a minute with him, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. I went to a pre-season tour with him, which he can't dance, by the way. I'll say that much. He's a terrible dancer. But he was a nice boy. I got on okay with Klinsmann. You know, they're all good boys. They're all, you know, got on well with all the lads.
Jason, I know we've got very limited time today on this podcast, but tell me some funny player stories if you can.
Right. Well, Klinsmann's a great one. So we went to Hong Kong, Singapore, and China. It was an end of season tour. This was 1996. We had the Euros, so it was going into the Euros. So Teddy and Darren were both involved in the England squad, but we were going to Hong Kong, Singapore, and China. And Klinsmann was playing for Germany at the time, and we had to play 4 games, something like that. And it was structured, the deal, by every goal that we beat the opposition by, the squad would get £10,000. The squad. It doesn't sound a lot now, but back then, 10,000. So we had to. So, for example, we win by 7 goals over the 3 games on aggregate. The squad gets £70,000. That's how that was structured. Anyway, we went out, and so we got on the plane and we travelled out there. And some of the lads broke into we were in first class, broke into the fridge that was going for the champagne breakfast when we arrived in Hong Kong. Anyway, someone was sick. I think I know it was. I don't want to libel him now. It's been put out there. You Google it. Someone was sick. It wasn't me, by the way. Anyway, so we've done this presser. When we get to Hong Kong, everyone is absolutely slaughtered. And we got there in the morning, and everyone's in their chair. And it's live on TV, Chris, by the way, in Hong Kong TV, and all the lads are like that on their chair, right? And we saw a replay of it like later on, because it's a big thing. Spurs turning up in Hong Kong, Singapore, and China, and everywhere. This end of season, but not pre-season. It was just a great trip. But going back to the Klinsmann thing, we went to a bar. Klinsmann put his credit card behind the bar and said, "Look, lads, whatever you want, you can have." I saw no names again. Lads like sticking bottles of Jack Daniels and champagne under their, literally put it on Klinsmann bill, just walking off down there. And I'd follow them, or I might have been part of that problem. But Klinsmann, what a boy! He honestly, he paid. I don't know what the bill was, but he paid the bill. But it was such a crazy trip, actually. Bearing in mind we had the Euros coming up that month later.
Jace, talking about money in the changing room when you played for Spurs, did any of you ever talk about money? Did any of you ever say how much you earned?
No, never. No, never in any dressing room.
Okay.
No, I think it's the same. I'm guessing in offices or any industry, you don't talk about what money you sign a contract. You're happy with your terms and conditions, and if that's what you want to sign for, sign those terms and conditions. That's on you. I think, Chris, we all know who the big earners are in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Right. I think we do, don't we?
Yeah.
We all know who should be earning the big money and who should be there, and it's up to you to sign that contract. But then when you start reaching certain heights, you start doing things in the game, start scoring, more goals or keeping more clean sheets or whatever it might be. Then you go back and renegotiate.
What was Teddy Sheringham like?
I love Ted. He was great. He was a miserable bastard, honestly. I promise you. I get on well with him. Whenever I see Ted now, honestly, he's great. So this is going back. Honestly, this is going back to this.
I know what you're going to say, and this is exactly why I prompted it.
Oh no! I've told you this away. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So we're in this is going back to Hong Kong, Singapore. So when I go in, right, I'm a friendly. I go in, I speak to people, say good morning to everyone, right? So you go in some mornings to Ted. Ted sat opposite me, and I was going, "All right, Ted," and he go, "All right, Jace, how you doing?" Blah blah, have a chat. Right? Some mornings I go in there and Ted will be changing. "All right, Ted." I'm like, I can't be bothered today, Ted. You're just a miserable whatever's going on in your world, right? So he went out on that particular tour, and it was when we went out one night in Hong Kong, and I grabbed him, and I grabbed him. I said, "Ted, you're a miserable bastard. You really are." I say hello to you some mornings. Some mornings you say good morning. Some mornings you grunt. I mean, you're just, And he said to me, "Do you know what, Jay? You're not the first person to say that. A few people said that." So that next morning, I'm sitting at breakfast with a massive hangover, and he's come down. He's grabbed me in my ear. He's gone, "Morning, Jace," right in my ear. And I'm like, fuck, Jesus Christ, Ted. Yeah, and it's like but I look, Ted's I think he's probably in a quiet taste for most people. I like him. If I bumped into him now, I'd stop and have a chat with him. I'd have no problem with Ted at all.
Yeah, I really like him. I've got to admit, a couple of months ago, I was at a Legends Night with him, and I asked him the question of what he thought of Sol Campbell moving to Arsenal, and his response was he was an effing idiot. Now, I think you were at Spurs when he made his debut in the 92-93 season at Chelsea. What did you make of that decision when he went to Arsenal?
Made the right choice.
Come on.
Loyalty.
Right, where's the loyalty, Jace?
Well,
when you're
there is no loyalty in football. There is no loyalty in football, Chris. This is the big misconception that fans have when we support clubs, right? So I've been on both sides. There is no loyalty in football. You pay for loyalty. If Spurs, let me ask you this, right? If Spurs had offered Sol £1 million a week, would he have left?
The thing is, though, Jace, when he's asked in an interview, "Are you staying?" and he looks down the camera lens and says, "I'm staying."
Yeah.
Why lie?
How do you know he lied?
What do you mean, how do I know he lied?
Well, how do you know he lied? How do you know that Spurs didn't shaft him? How do you know that the negotiations that they sat down that he felt he wanted or was deserved? How come you don't know that they didn't say, "No, we're not going to give you that"? And then he's put in a position. Ashley Cole.
But he would never have said. He would never have said, "I'm staying." If
he might have believed that. But he might have believed that at the time.
Is that what you believe?
No, I don't know. I'm putting forward a scenario that everyone seems to think that Sol Campbell's the bad guy, right? He left. He went. He made the right call for his career-wise. We can't deny that. But if Spurs wanted to really keep him, why didn't Spurs nail him down? Let's say, so he got underground at Arsenal. Why didn't Spurs give him 2 years before that 80 grand a week for 4 years? They kept him. So players. Here's what we're seeing this now at Liverpool with Trent, right? A very similar scenario. When you allow a player, doesn't matter whether they come from the ranks or not, when you allow a player to get into his last 2 years of his contract, you are really, if you want to keep him, you're really playing a very difficult game with the player, because the agent then is now looking, thinking, right, what are our options? And it's only right the player looks at his options. And those options become, the longer the contract is left shorter, the bigger the options come. You watch what's going to happen now with Trent. In 2.5 months' time, Trent can sign a pre-contract with Real Madrid or anyone outside of the UK.
Jace, out of all the people that you work with at Spurs, who do you keep in touch with now?
Sedge. I mean, Justin was a good friend of mine. Justin Edinburgh, Steve Sedgley and Paul Stewart come on my stag do, my first marriage. I still speak to Sedge. I drop messages. Absolutely devastated when Justin died. He was I don't know whether you met him, Chris. I'm guessing. Yeah, what a boy. What a boy. What a boy.
Do you know, just a couple of weeks ago, before he very sadly passed away, I interviewed him at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And of course, he was Leyton Orient manager at the time. And we were talking for a couple of minutes. And I actually picked him up and said, "You keep saying we rather than Spurs or whatever." And he said, "It will always be we." And that was a really touching moment. And of course, Champions League final, saw Justin out in the Champions League final on the stage with all the other players.
It was just Sedge out on that as well. Sedge sent me photographs.
Yeah, very, very sad.
Yeah,
your time at Spurs, Jerry Francis, did you get on well with him?
He never looked at me. I mean, so this was the time when, so Jerry was did he sell me? I had so many managers. So Jerry was, I think I played one game under Jerry.
You did. It was your last game, March 96 against Blackburn.
Yeah. I think Shearer scored a hat trick that game. So Jerry, very, very, quite an odd character actually. Have you met? I spoke to Jerry. I found him quite strange. Yeah, not doesn't make eye contact. Very odd. But this one particular day. So I'm looking now to move my career. Now the club want to sell me. I need to go. There's no confusion about what my career looks like. I'm not going to be at Spurs. We need to move on. Let's sort this out. So this particular day, I'm in a meeting with Jerry, and I'm trying to pin him down for a meeting. And I knocked on his door, and he comes out. On a promise, with the towel around him. He's come round. And I'm like, "Oh, and he's like, come on then," like a little bit like, "Oh, come on, let's get this out of the way." Anyway, so he sits down in his office, and he puts his feet on the table like this, right? Sticks his feet up, and he looks out the window. Never look to you. And I know someone else has said this story about a manager doing this, but I promise it's true. He stuck his feet on the table. He starts playing with his nuts, right, like that. And he's not looking at me. He's like, "Yeah, well, we don't really see you as a, And I'm like, I'm looking to go, and I'm looking. I'm going. I just got up and walked out. I'm like, this is just it's like a bad joke. Like, how bad it's been for me at Spurs, how disappointing it's been for everyone, by the way. And I've got you now sitting there with your towel, looking feet on the table, looking out the window, playing with your towels.
Jace, what managers did you get on well with?
At Spurs? I like Clem and Ray. I got on well with those. I love Terry. He was brilliant. But I never played for him, Chris.
No.
Honestly, I was like I was always in the squad, always injured. Honestly, it was a terrible time for both the club and me. Injuries, it destroyed me, and the club have to take some huge responsibility for not looking after an asset. They didn't look after me.
I kind of touched on this when we had a beer or two a couple of months ago in the pub, and that's why I wanted to invite you on to talk about it. Is your hatred for Spurs? Do you think that is? Do you think this is part of the problem because you had such a terrible time with injuries and the way that it was dealt with? Is that I suppose your hatred for Tottenham in that regard?
What makes you think I hate?
You do.
Okay, Chris. Let me ask you this. Right? Give me an example of my hate, because do you know what I get, Chris? I get Arsenal fans saying to me, "Why do you hate Arsenal?" West Ham fans, "Why do you hate West Ham?" Man United, look, they all say I hate them. They all do. The thing is,
but you've told me you hate Spurs.
Yeah, but okay. let's park that, right? Let's park that. I hate Arsenal. I hate West Ham. I hate Liverpool. I hate it. If you're not Chelsea, it's hate such a brilliant word because it conjures up this. But I love that. There's the thing about football. Chelsea Spurs, that vitriol, that atmosphere you get at the ground on those nights or days, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There ain't many better atmospheres like that. And I love it. And Chris, look, you're a good lad. I mean, I ain't a bad boy. We get on well, right? I've got Spurs mates. I'm sure you have Chelsea mates as well.
Not really.
Am I not a mate then? Is that what you're saying? But it's I find it hilarious because no one, obviously you hear more of me on talkSPORT, but they never mention the good things I say about Spurs. Why do you never remember that?
Come on, give me some good things about Tottenham. Come on.
I have spoken glowing. My favourite striker, Harry Kane. I have defended Harry Kane for years. For years. Everyone piling in about Harry Kane. I have defended him. I think I still think he's one of the best strikers in the world. And everyone piles in. But you know what? It's amazing because I can't remember like individual games where I've praised Spurs or whatever they might have done or with it wound up. But it's amazing. No one ever remembers the thing you praise. They own, and this is all fans, not just you, not Spurs. It's all football fans. They never, ever, ever remember, conveniently, selective hearing, never remember the good things you say. Never.
I suppose the all joking aside, Jace, being serious for a second, I think that the majority of the comments that came on my social media today on different platforms is you would never think that Jason played for Spurs the way he talks about them.
Right. There's no question there, Chris.
What would you say to that? Because I suppose if you work at an organisation, whether it be a football club, an office, whatever, you kind of have a soft spot for them, don't you?
No. What? Not football. Not football. Football's different, Chris.
Okay. What good memories would you say that you've got from your time at Spurs? Any good memories?
Oh, look, I've had the funny times. Like, I still speak to Neil Razor. Me and Razor room together for a season. He's a great boy. Obviously, Justin, God rest his soul, Sedge. I made good friends. And you know what? It's a part of my life that whatever Spurs fans think of me and I think of Spurs, we are, unfortunately, fortunately, we are. It's part of my life and I'm part of your life. And that's just the way it is. Did it work out? No, it didn't. But I'm a Chelsea fan, Chris. That's it. I'm a Chelsea fan, and I'm a proper Chelsea fan. I was as a kid. I grew up supporting Chelsea. I only want to play for Chelsea. Had things worked out at Spurs, who knows how things would have been done? I can't answer that question. But here's the thing I don't get. I don't get how you don't get that the rivalry between Chelsea and Spurs is there and it's real and it's brilliant. I love it. I work with Jamie O'Hara every night. I'll be with him in an hour and a half's time, right? The fact that it works, Chelsea Spurs hatred, dislike, whatever you want to dress it up, it works. It's part of football culture. It's part of the Premier League. It's part of what makes. We'll play Brentford at home. You play Brentford at home.
Yeah.
They're West London rival, apparently.
Yeah.
Give me Spurs at home. Give me Spurs away. Those are the games. And I don't fully understand how fans can't grasp that that's what makes football, why we love it. You need that vitriol. You need that poison. You need that. It matters. And we can all appreciate one another's strengths and weaknesses. But when it comes to match days, that I love those games, Chris. That day, one of the best atmospheres ever is the Battle of the Bridge.
Yeah.
Were you there that day,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I know it didn't go well for you. Sorry, but I've got to tell you, that atmosphere, you could cut it with a knife. It was.
Yeah.
And you don't get many of those games. Okay, Chris, you name the games, right? You name them, where the atmosphere is literally crackling.
It is. It's always Spurs.
How many are there?
Spurs
How many?
Yeah.
very many, and that's why, and that is so important to me. If I could play Spurs 4 times a season, I would.
Yeah, Jason, let's talk a little bit about your broadcasting career, because of course you moved into broadcasting. How did it happen? How did it become, you know, 1 minute you're a footballer, next minute you're in broadcasting? And also what I wanted to ask is there that same buzz with it, the football?
No, nothing will ever. But it's. I'm very lucky. I mentioned Jamie Horror. The thing about football is that you have a camaraderie, you have a relationship, an ability in a dressing room. Anyone that's been in an office where it's men, there's something different. I've never been in an office other than working for talkSPORT where there are women there. There's something about lads getting on, all fighting for the same cause. All getting on well. Well, not all of you, but you know, it's that coming together, and you can't replicate that in a men's. I mean, you know, you must play football, Chris, right? I mean, you're together. It's something about going for a drink afterwards, I'm guessing, in the pub. But it's very fortuitous because I retired with a knee injury when I was 29, unfortunately. But and I was coaching at Chelsea's academy for 2.5 years, and Jose had just joined. Roma had joined the year before, and basically talkSPORT were desperate to find someone that had an in at Chelsea that was happy to have a conversation about Roman and Jose. And Chelsea at that time were doing. You know, we just started under Jose, and it's like, what's happening here? There's something big happening. And then I started doing more and more shows, and you know, I've been there 20 years now. I was lucky, but you've got to be able to do the job. You know, you've got to be able to talk. You've got to be able to speak football and react. The show I do, Chris, as you know, on the Sports Bar, it's a different show. We take the piss. We have a laugh.
Yeah.
There's all that has anyone seen. The laugh, the track. You know, it's a different show. I don't get, Chris, how football fans can take my show seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know how you say what you hate Spurs. I don't know how you could, because if Liverpool lose in 2 weeks' time, they're getting it.
Yeah.
Everyone gets it.
I get it.
You know, it's don't take it so seriously. Don't take the Sports Bar with me and O'Hara so seriously. It's just fun, and it's what I think football fans want to hear when they come out of a game. Sometimes it's hard to hear when you get beat 3-2 away at Brighton. But you know what? If Arsenal done the same, you'd be tuning in.
Yeah, I know when you said that in the pub a couple of months back, and it's funny because when I put the picture up of me and you in the pub having a beer with one another, people are like, how can you have a drink with him? And I said, he's a really nice guy. And they went, really? And I went, yeah. Jason, lastly, let's talk about Spurs this season under Postecoglou, because, of course, it's Postecoglou's second year. Of course, we lost to Brighton 3-2 after being 2-0 up at the weekend.
Love track.
How would you describe Postecoglou's time at Spurs? Because you mentioned the Sports Bar there. You've had a lot of calls in recently about, you know, some fans want Postecoglou gone. What do you make of it?
Yeah. Now that's uttering. That's ridiculous. So he's got. So we're going to go back, unfortunately for you, but I've got to bring it back to the time we beat you at your place nearly a year ago now, when the famous line said, "It's who we are, mate," right? And you went down to 9 men, and he's trying to change a culture at a football club. He is coming in and trying to change the way that the mindset of the players, the backroom staff, the board, and you as the fans. And it's like, whatever happens, here's how we're going to play. And he might regret that one day, but I absolutely get why he did or tried to do what he did on that particular day. So we're going to play. This is the style. This is the system. This is what we're going to try and achieve. But in the Premier League, you need to be adaptable. You need to be flexible. You need to tailor your team, your tactics, according to the opposition, whether it be Chelsea at home or Nottingham Forest at home, whether it be Brighton away or Liverpool at home. Then you can't do one size doesn't fit all. And the best example I can give you is and it involves Spurs, is that Chelsea have played the last 2 games. We've played Brighton at home and Forest at home. Brighton came with an attacking high line at the back, played high, squeezed the pitch, left space in behind. And then we went 1-0 down, but we destroyed them because Lewis Dunk can't run. They got Estupinian coming tight, and the ball goes to the top, and we beat them 4-2. 7 days later, we played Forest. Forest came. We're playing that way. We're going to sit deep. We're going to pack the midfield, and we're going to frustrate. You can't play the same way. Then you guys go to Brighton, and it's really interesting because it was 2 teams that want to attack, and you saw actually what that can look like.
Yeah.
2-0 up, 3-2. That's what that game looks like. And I think Postecoglou, unless he compromises about the way he wants to play, in terms of you can't play the same way. Like Forest and Brighton, they're polar opposites. You can't play the same way against both teams because you need to tailor it. And this is why Arsenal, I hate to say this because I think Arsenal will win the title because at the moment, I know, Chris, I apologize, but I feel that Arsenal win it. Why? Because they get both sides of the game right. They can attack when they need to. They defend in numbers. The balance they have control of games. They control games. Liverpool are the best side alongside Arsenal. City don't control games. Chelsea don't. Spurs don't. Brighton don't. You need to be able to control games when the control is starting to change shape. And Postecoglou didn't bring on Sarr and who else did he bring on? Basuma. Yeah. 79 minutes.
Yeah.
You're 3-2 down. That's a defensive decision. The game was gone. He should have done that at 2-1.
Do you think Postecoglou will be successful at Spurs and win a trophy?
He might win a cup because I think you can win a cup playing like that because you might get lucky. You can win games by attacking teams, and you don't have to be. You can't win a league like that. You ain't going to win a league like that. You might win a cup. I can't see why you can't win a cup. You need luck of the draw. He's no way he's winning the league like that. No way.
Jace, who will finish higher in the league, Spurs or Chelsea this season?
It's a 50-50. It's a pick and call that. We have our deficiencies. We're very similar. We attack at times when we should defend in numbers. We don't have control of the game. Maresca is trying to find his team. We've got. I'll say Chelsea. I'll tell you why. Our bench is ridiculously good. I watched the other day when.
Well, it should be for £1 billion.
Well, of course, a money spend is the way it should be. But it's a young squad. But Werner, you're seeing the Werner that we sold. It's like I get Werner has a role in the team because he stretches the back line. And what he'll do, he'll stretch and allow space for whoever decides to come in that middle of the park.
Jace, honestly, I could talk to you all night. I know we've got very limited time, but I've got so many more.
You're okay. You got 5 more minutes. Give me 5 minutes.
With Timo Werner, I see. I saw the positives of him coming in originally on loan. I think he's a very, very hard-working player. But how does Postecoglou get him to finish? Because in that final third, it's so frustrating. The positions he gets into and the misses are just unbearable to watch.
Chris, he's not a natural finisher. He can work on it. He's not. He ain't a Gary Lineker. He ain't a Harry Kane. He ain't got that in his armory. He's simply not. What he does do, though, he will stretch defenses. He will open up. So he'll take sides that way, and he'll give more space for Bentancur, whoever it might be, who arrives in that particular area. Kulusevski, it might be him, but he ain't going to win. He might get your goal. He ain't going to win your game in a 1v1. I've seen it too many times. That's unfortunately the play you've got. Yeah.
Jason, how would you describe Spurs, say, in the last 5 or 6 years? Because when Pochettino took Spurs to a Champions League final in 2019, he then, in my opinion, he had more than enough credit in the bank to keep his job. Of course, they went with Jose Mourinho in the November after the Champions League final defeat. And then, of course, we've gone through multiple different managers, win-now managers. Antonio Conte, Nuno was there as well. Stellini, Mason have spent time in the technical area. 7 managers, including Pochettino, since 2019. So we have gone round in circles. Postecoglou, should he be given, a good couple of seasons? Should he be given time and patience by the fans?
My initial answer is yes, but I'm going to go back to the point we were just talking about earlier. If he is resistant to compromise about dealing with, you can't play one style in the Premier League. You might be able to do it in the Scottish Premier League when you've got the better players. You roll teams over. You get one day you get Brighton turning up, then you get Forest, then you get Brentford. It's the toughest league because there are so many different styles and different managers coming and playing one style at home, one style away. Unless he adapts, unless he learns, I can't see how he's going to have any success in the league. Cups, of course you can win a cup. Look at Ten Hag. My God, Ten Hag can win a cup. Why can't Postecoglou, for God's sakes? It's true though. It's true, and you've got good enough players to do it. But there's a stubbornness about him, which will be his downfall, in my opinion, because he has this, and I know he wants to change the culture, and I feel sorry for him because he's possibly the right manager, but at the wrong time. He is trying to change the culture of a Spurs team, club, for the last 30 years that has found themselves in this cycle. And he's come and says, you know what? Here's my way. Here's what I'm going to do. And he needs help. He needs help. But he also needs to know, when that comment about the set piece coach, keep your mouth shut. It's who we are, mate. Keep your mouth shut. He's trying, but do that publicly. Sorry, do it privately. Don't do it publicly. And I like him. What's not to dislike about him as a man? I saw him on the pitch at the end of the game against Brighton. You could feel at that point, but I think he has to look at himself and go, can I be more flexible? Can I adjust? Do I need to compromise who I am? Unless the answer at some stage is yes, I don't see him really doing anything major at Spurs.
Jason, are you surprised on the goals that Spurs have conceded this season, particularly when on paper you look at Romero and Van der Ven, Udogie, Pedro Porro? It looks a great lineup. Are you surprised by the types of goals that we've conceded this season?
So, before I came on here, I thought I'd do a bit of research on Spurs. I do that. Your XG, do you know your XG of scoring goals this season? Do you know where you are? I don't know if this is a metric with your interest or, but I
think
thought
it's first.
It's second.
Second.
Right? Second, right? Which is great. Right? Which is great. Do you know your XG on conceding goals?
Go on.
Now you tell me. Give me.
I don't know.
Go on. Give me a number. XG. Where are you?
10th.
Second.
Second. Okay.
You're second, right? So you're a team that plays in moments that allows games to drift. Now, this time last year, you were top of the table, right? I thought last season you overachieved to be top. You weren't the best, but you took advantage. You finished games. I seem to remember a game away at Brighton. Did you get a penalty at Brighton? I seem to remember.
No, we lost
2-1. Last season.
Lost 4-2. 4-2.
No, last season.
Was it? Yeah, we lost last season as well.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. There's a game you win. Brentford. Is it Brentford?
Brentford was opening game of the season 2-2.
Okay. Anyway, look, this guy. Anyway, the point I'm not doing it very well. The point I'm trying to make. I seem to remember that early on last season, you took advantage of situations that present themselves. This season, you've not. I watched your way at Newcastle. How you lost that game, I'll never know. You create chances. You could have been 3-up against Brighton at the weekend. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Your XG to score goals. It might be a metric you like or don't like, but I'm not so sure you're in a bad position. I think you're creating chances, not taking them, which is never a good thing. You're conceding chances, not huge amount, but when you do, you get punished. And those things, if you tighten them up, I'm not so sure Spurs are a million miles away from being all right. I think the scorelines haven't gone your way. League position doesn't look great. What happened at the weekend is devastating. We've all been there. 2-0 up, 3-2 down. It's terrible.
Jason, in terms of going forward, then in future transfer windows, what do you think Postecoglou will be after?
I think he needs to look at himself, Chris. I don't know. Is your squad that bad? Okay, maybe there isn't the strength in depth.
It's not. It's not that bad.
But... No, I feel that he needs to perhaps look at games when you're 2-0 up. I'm not saying he has to turn into Nottingham Forest. I'm not saying he has to sit deep and do what Arsenal did with 10 men against Man City. Do you need to approach a game? Do you need to go and get a 2-0 up with 45 minutes on the clock? Do you really need to go and get the 4th, 5th, 6th goal? You know, it's great and easy on the eye if you do that. And there'll be games you'll do that this season, right? And you'll be
so you're basically saying you agree with a lot of your listeners then with the criticism aimed at Ange?
I think he's got to take some responsibility. I think he has to look at what there are good parts, as there is in every manager, but when you're playing the way you did first half at the weekend, it's a great example that because it gives you that the best and the worst of Spurs. So it's the perfect game to come into. When you're doing what you're doing and you dominated the game, they had chances, by the way, Brighton first half. It's not as if they were sat there camped on their block, but you know what you're going to get from Brighton second half. They're not going to change. So you're 2-0 up. There's no way you should lose that game. You might draw it you can't lose that game. You can't lose it. And what it does, it feeds into this narrative of like Spursy, right? This thing Spursy, right? It feeds into it. But he's come to change that. But when you come out with that's who we are, mate, I think what you do, you've got to be adaptable. You've got to say sometimes. So to bring on Basuma and he brought on Basuma and Sarr, right?
So,
79 minutes. That tells me he's trying to stem the flow. You're 3-2 down.
Yeah.
I think that substitution, you could have read that game at 2-1 or even 2-2, Chris.
Yeah.
Even if you come out with a point, adapt to what's going on around you. See the picture. See what's going on. And to do it in 79 minutes when the game was probably or certainly almost lost. Don't know, mate. That would worry me as a Spurs fan that he's made that call then.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's got to make it on 46. I'm saying read what's going on in front of you. But it's your question. Look, I like him, but I'm not sure he's going to be the answer right now.
Wow. Well, Jace, thank you so much. I love what you said to me a couple of months ago in the pub because when I was just looking out the window, you whispered in my ear, "Come on, you Spurs." Could you do that again?
I had a few drinks back then. Chris.
You did. Jace, I don't know whether I'm pushing my luck here, but when Spurs next face Chelsea, I'd love to have you back on for a short.
I'll do it.
Will you be up for it?
I'll do it before the game. 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And you've had a lot of very positive comments in the comment section here on YouTube.
Have I?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, enjoy your show this evening with Jamie O'Hara. I look forward to having him on one day.
I'll speak to him. Yeah. The first thing he'll say is, "How much?" No, Chris, I've loved it. Look, you know me. Everyone thinks because they see me on or hear me on talkSPORT that it's not until you hear people. And I have a persona on there, and it's I love laughing at Spurs, and Jamie loves laughing at Chelsea. That's how a radio show should work.
Absolutely. Well, Jace, thank you so much. You've been a great guest, and as I say, I would love to be back on again very soon. Enjoy this evening, and thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for listening, and until the next time, come on, you Spurs.
Up the Chelsea.